The Great Chamber of the Galactic Assembly was the largest structure ever built by intelligent life. It floated in the empty space above Vareth Prime, a massive ring of metal and glass where representatives from 47 species gathered to decide the fate of worlds. Today, they would decide the fate of Earth. Ambassador Daniel Carter stood at the human delegation's platform. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 20 years building relationships with alien species, learning their languages, understanding their fears. Now, all of that work was about to be destroyed. "The council will come to order," announced the speaker, a being made of living crystal whose voice echoed through the chamber like wind through a canyon. "We are here to vote on Resolution 7 Omega, the classification of humanity as a threat species and the authorization of military action against the Sol system." Daniel looked around the chamber. Hundreds of alien faces looked back at him. Some showed sympathy. Most showed fear. A few showed open hatred. High Arbiter Kethril of the Valori Dominion rose from his seat. He was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 eyes that never blinked. The Valori were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They believed that gave them the right to judge everyone else. "Fellow representatives," Kethril began, his voice smooth and confident. "We have watched humanity for 200 years. In that time, they have grown from a primitive species to a spacefaring civilization. This growth is unnatural. It is dangerous." Daniel listened as Kethril listed humanity's sins. Their violent history, their wars, their weapons, the way they consumed resources and spread across their solar system like a disease. "They call themselves explorers," Kethril continued. "But we know what they really are. They are predators. And if we do not act now, they will become a threat to every species in this galaxy." The chamber erupted in noise. Some species shouted their agreement. Others called for calm. Daniel waited for the speaker to restore order. "The human ambassador may respond," the speaker announced. Daniel stepped forward. He had prepared a long speech full of facts and arguments. But looking at the faces around him, he knew that words would not be enough. They had already made up their minds. "High Arbiter Kethril speaks of our violent history," Daniel said. "He is not wrong. Humanity has fought many wars. We have done terrible things to each other. But we have also learned from those mistakes. We created laws to prevent genocide. We built institutions to promote peace. We reached for the stars not to conquer, but to explore." He paused and looked directly at Kethril. "You fear our growth, but growth is not a crime. You fear our strength, but strength is not evil. What you really fear is that you do not understand us. And instead of trying to understand, you choose to destroy." Daniel turned to address the entire chamber. "Humanity has asked for nothing but friendship. We have shared our art, our music, our stories. We have offered trade and cooperation. In return, you offer us extinction." He took a deep breath. "If you vote for this resolution, you will not be protecting the galaxy. You will be starting a war that you cannot win. And when it is over, you will realize that you destroyed the one species that could have been your greatest ally." The chamber was silent. Daniel returned to his platform, knowing that he had done everything he could. The vote began. One by one, each species cast their decision. Daniel watched the numbers change on the display above the speaker's platform. The Valori voted yes. The Kresh voted yes. The Moldari voted yes. Species after species chose to condemn Earth. A few voted no. The Anthera, a peaceful species of scholars. The Velm, traders who had grown rich from human commerce. The Sin, warriors who respected human courage. The Torath, engineers who admired human creativity. Most of the neutral species abstained. They did not want to be part of this decision. They did not want the blood on their hands. When the voting ended, the speaker announced the results. 31 species have voted in favor of Resolution 7 Omega. 12 species have abstained. 4 species have voted against. The resolution passes. Daniel felt his heart sink. 20 years of work destroyed in a single vote. The human delegation has 72 hours to evacuate all personnel from council space, the speaker continued. After that time, the Galactic Enforcement Fleet will establish a military blockade around the Sol system. Any human vessel attempting to leave will be destroyed. Catherall smiled. It was a cold, cruel expression. The Council has spoken, he said. Humanity's expansion ends today. Daniel gathered his staff and prepared to leave. As he walked toward the exit, a small figure blocked his path. It was Ambassador Tiranesh of the Anthera, one of the species that had voted no. I am sorry, Daniel, she said. Her large eyes were filled with sadness. We tried to stop this. I know, Daniel replied. Thank you for standing with us. What will your people do? Tiranesh asked. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled, but there was no warmth in it. What we have always done. Survive. He left the chamber and walked to his ship. His staff was already packing equipment and preparing for departure. They worked in silence, their faces grim. Daniel sat alone in his office and stared at the communication console. He had to send a message to Earth. He had to tell them what had happened. He had to tell them that the galaxy had decided to treat humanity as an enemy. He thought about all the times humans had faced extinction. Ice ages, plagues, wars, asteroid impacts. Every time, humanity had survived. Every time, they had come back stronger. The Council thought they were dealing with a young, weak species. They thought humans would surrender peacefully or be easily contained. They did not understand what they were dealing with. Daniel opened a secure channel to Earth. He recorded a short message, encrypting it with codes that no alien technology could break. They made their choice, he said. Now we make ours. He sent the message and watched it disappear into the void of space. In 72 hours, the blockade would begin. In 72 hours, the galaxy would learn that voting against Earth was the biggest mistake they had ever made. Daniel looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity was preparing. Not to surrender. Not to run. To fight. And when the fighting was over, the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The message arrived at Earth Defense Command at 3 in the morning. General Nathan Cole was asleep when his phone rang. 5 minutes later, he was in his car, driving through empty streets toward the underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. By the time he arrived, the conference room was already filling with the most powerful people on the planet. President Kevin Brooks sat at the head of the table, his face showing no emotion. Around him were generals, admirals, scientists, and diplomats from every major nation on Earth. What do we know? The president asked. General Cole pulled up a holographic display. Ambassador Carter's message confirmed our worst fears. The Galactic Council voted to classify humanity as a threat species. They are sending a fleet to blockade our solar system. We have 72 hours. The room was silent. Everyone understood what this meant. War with the entire galaxy. How many ships? Asked Admiral Laura Bennett. She was a small woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes. She had commanded Earth's defensive fleet for 15 years. Our intelligence suggests 200 warships from multiple species, Cole replied. Mostly Valori and Kresh vessels. Some Muldari carriers. We only have 60 ships in active service, someone muttered. How are we supposed to fight 200? The president raised his hand for silence. General Cole, please continue. Cole changed the display. The hologram now showed a map of the solar system, filled with red dots that no one in the room had ever seen before. 20 years ago, the Global Defense Coalition began a secret project called Sleeping Giant, Cole explained. We knew that eventually, the galaxy would see us as a threat. We knew that our official fleet would not be enough to defend Earth, so we built a second fleet. A hidden fleet. The red dots on the map numbered in the hundreds. Hidden behind asteroids, buried beneath the ice of distant moons, floating in the darkness between planets. 512 ships, Cole said, armed with weapons that the Council has never seen, powered by engines that they do not believe are possible. Admiral Bennett leaned forward. The quantum slip drives, they actually work. A woman at the far end of the table stood up. Dr. Megan Stone was the chief scientist of Earth's Advanced Propulsion Program. She was young for someone in her position, with messy brown hair and glasses that she constantly pushed up her nose. They work, she confirmed. Traditional faster-than-light travel uses subspace tunnels. It is predictable, slow. Our quantum slip drives fold space itself. A ship can appear anywhere within a light year in less than a second. The Council has nothing that can match it. The President nodded slowly. What about weapons? General Cole brought up another display. Plasma cannons with 3 times the yield of anything the Valori have. Kinetic impactors that can punch through any known shield. And our newest development. He paused. Gravitic disruptors. What do those do? Someone asked. They create a temporary gravity well, strong enough to crush a ship's hull or tear it apart from the inside. Cole's expression was grim. We hoped we would never have to use them. The President stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was beginning to rise over the mountains. It was a beautiful morning. The kind of morning that made you forget that the universe was full of species that wanted humanity dead. When I became president, he said quietly, I hoped that my legacy would be peace. I hoped that we could show the galaxy that humans were worthy of friendship. Instead, they have forced us to show them something else. He turned back to the room. Activate Operation Sleeping Giant. Full mobilization of all hidden assets. I want every ship, every weapon, every soldier ready to fight within 48 hours. Yes, sir, General Cole replied. And Admiral Bennett, the President continued, I want you to personally command our response fleet. Show the galaxy what happens when they threaten Earth. Admiral Bennett stood and saluted. It will be my honor, sir. As the meeting ended and people rushed to their assignments, Dr. Stone approached the President. Sir, there is something else you should know. What is it? The 4 species that voted against the resolution. The Anthera, the Velm, the Sin, and the Torth. She hesitated. We have been in secret contact with them for years. Trading technology. Sharing information. They warned us this vote was coming. The President raised an eyebrow. We have allies? We have friends, Dr. Stone corrected. They could not stop the vote, but they will not fight against us. And when this is over, they will stand with us. For the first time that morning, the President smiled. Good. We are going to need all the friends we can get. Across the planet, the machinery of war began to move. In shipyards hidden beneath the ocean, crews rushed to prepare vessels that had waited decades for this moment. In training facilities around the world, soldiers received their orders and said goodbye to their families. In laboratories and factories, scientists and engineers worked around the clock to produce the weapons that would defend their home. Admiral Bennett stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Defiant Hope. It was the largest and most powerful ship ever built by human hands. Through the viewport, she could see dozens of other vessels taking their positions around her. Admiral, her communications officer reported. All fleet elements are reporting ready. Operation Sleeping Giant is fully activated. Bennett nodded. Good. Set course for the outer system. We will meet our guests at the edge of our territory. What are your orders when we engage the enemy, Admiral? Bennett was quiet for a moment. She thought about her children, safe in their homes on Earth. She thought about all the people who were counting on her to protect them. She thought about what the Council had done, voting to destroy humanity without even giving them a fair chance. We give them one opportunity to turn back, she said finally. One chance to admit their mistake. If they refuse, we show them why that vote was the worst decision they ever made. The Defiant Hope's engines roared to life. One by one, the ships of Earth's hidden fleet emerged from their hiding places and formed into battle groups. 500 warships, each one carrying the hopes and fears of an entire species. The galaxy thought humanity was weak. They thought humans would beg for mercy. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Fleet Commander Zoravan stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. Through the viewport, he could see the edge of the Sol system. Beyond those distant rocks and ice balls was Earth, the home of the troublesome humans. Status report, he ordered. All ships are in position, Commander, his tactical officer replied. 200 warships from 12 species. The largest enforcement fleet ever assembled. Zoravan nodded with satisfaction. He was Valori, like High Arbiter Kethrol, and he shared his leader's hatred of humanity. These primitive creatures had grown too fast, become too confident. It was time to put them in their place. Open a channel to the Sol system, he commanded. All frequencies. The communications officer worked his console. Channel open, Commander. Zoravan straightened his uniform and spoke in a voice that carried across the void of space. Attention, human vessels. This is Fleet Commander Zoravan of the Galactic Enforcement Fleet. By order of the Galactic Council, you are hereby commanded to surrender all military vessels and accept occupation of your solar system. You have 1 hour to comply. Failure to do so will result in the complete destruction of your species. He closed the channel and sat back in his chair. Now we wait. The hour passed slowly. Zoravan watched the sensor displays, expecting to see human ships approaching with white flags. He expected to see surrender messages flooding his communications array. He expected the humans to beg for mercy. Instead, there was only silence. Commander, the sensor officer said nervously, I am detecting energy signatures behind several asteroids in the outer belt. How many ships? Zoravan asked. The sensor officer's face went pale. Hundreds, sir. One count, over 500 vessels. Zoravan leaped to his feet. Impossible. Our intelligence said they had only 60 ships. Before he could say another word, space itself seemed to tear apart. In the blink of an eye, human warships appeared all around the enforcement fleet. They did not emerge from subspace tunnels like normal vessels. They simply appeared, as if they had always been there. What kind of technology is this? Zoravan demanded. How are they doing this? No one had an answer. On the bridge of the Defiant Hope, Admiral Laura Bennett watched the enemy fleet with cold eyes. Beside her stood Captain Ryan Mitchell, her second-in-command, and Lieutenant Katie Walsh, her tactical officer. Admiral, Lieutenant Walsh reported. All fleet elements are in position. Enemy vessels are surrounded. Open a channel, Bennett ordered. Channel open, Admiral. Bennett spoke clearly and calmly. Fleet Commander Zoravan, this is Admiral Laura Bennett of the Earth Defense Fleet. We offered you friendship. You chose war. Now face the consequences. She closed the channel and turned to her tactical officer. All ships, engage. The battle began with a flash of light so bright that sensors across the galaxy recorded it. Human plasma cannons fired in perfect coordination, their beams cutting through Valori shields like they were made of paper. Kinetic impactors slammed into Kresh warships, tearing holes in their hulls. The enforcement fleet tried to respond, but their weapons could not track targets that moved so fast. Human ships danced through space, appearing in one location, firing, then vanishing before the enemy could aim. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. Commander Zorovan watched in horror as his fleet fell apart around him. Ships exploded. Escape pods filled the void. Communications channels were flooded with screams and cries for help. "Return fire!" he screamed. "All ships, concentrate on their flagship." A dozen Valori warships turned their weapons toward the Defiant Hope. They fired everything they had. A wall of energy that should have vaporized any vessel in the galaxy that the Defiant Hope did not even try to dodge. Instead, its shields flared with a strange golden light. The enemy fire hit the shields and simply stopped, absorbed by technology that the Council had never imagined. "Impossible," Zorovan whispered. Captain Mitchell grinned. "Admiral, the enemy flagship is directly ahead. Shall I give the order to destroy it?" Admiral Bennett shook her head. "No. Disable their engines and weapons. I want their commander alive." "Understood, Admiral." The Defiant Hope's gravitic disruptors hummed to life. A beam of twisted space reached out and touched Zorovan's flagship. The ship shuddered as its engine core collapsed. Weapon systems overloaded and went dark. In seconds, the most powerful vessel in the enforcement fleet was a drifting wreck. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 80 Valori warships had been destroyed. Another 50 vessels from other species were disabled or heavily damaged. The rest had fled into subspace, running back to their home worlds with tales of horror. Human losses were minimal. 12 ships damaged, none destroyed. 0 casualties. Admiral Bennett surveyed the wreckage and felt no joy. War was never something to celebrate, even when you won. "Open a channel to all surviving enemy vessels," she ordered. "Channel open, Admiral." "Attention, all remaining ships. The battle is over. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your wounded will be treated. Your dead will be honored. You are now prisoners of war, and you will be treated according to the rules of the Geneva Convention." She paused. "Earth did not ask for this war, but we will finish it. Tell your governments what you saw here today. Tell them that humanity is not a species to be threatened. Tell them that the vote against Earth was a mistake they will regret for generations." She closed the channel and turned to her crew. "Begin rescue operations. I want every survivor brought aboard and given medical attention." Captain Mitchell looked surprised. "Admiral, they came here to destroy us. Why are we helping them?" Bennett looked out at the wreckage floating in the void. Somewhere in that mess were thousands of beings who had followed orders they did not choose. Soldiers who had families waiting for them at home. People who were just doing their jobs. "Because that is what humans do," she said quietly. "We fight when we must. But we never forget that our enemies are people too. The Council voted to destroy us because they feared what we might become. Today, we show them what we truly are." The rescue operations began. Human medics rushed to save alien lives. Human engineers worked to stabilize damaged ships. Human soldiers shared their food and water with prisoners who had come to kill them. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread like wildfire. The great enforcement fleet had been destroyed by a species that should have been helpless. The humans had won, and they had won with mercy. The universe would never see humanity the same way again. The Galactic Assembly Chamber was in chaos. Representatives from dozens of species shouted at each other, their translators struggling to keep up with the flood of angry words. In the center of it all stood High Arbiter Kethril, his blue face darker than usual with rage. "This changes nothing," he insisted. "The humans won a single battle. They cannot defeat the combined might of the entire galaxy. A single battle? Shouted the Kresh representative, his massive form shaking with anger. We lost 80 ships, 80, and the humans lost none. This was not a battle. This was a slaughter. The Molduri Consortium is withdrawing from the coalition, announced another delegate. We will not send more of our ships to die against an enemy we clearly do not understand. One by one, the species that had supported the resolution began to back away. The Valari had promised them an easy victory. They had said that humanity was weak, primitive, divided. Instead, they had sent their fleets into a trap. Cowards, Kethril spat. All of you. If you had committed your full forces from the beginning, we would have crushed them. Enough. The voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise like a blade. Everyone turned to see Ambassador Tiranesh of the Anthera rising from her seat. She was small and fragile-looking, with large eyes and delicate features. But her voice carried the weight of a species that had been part of galactic civilization for 10,000 years. We warned you, Tiranesh said. We told you that humanity was not the enemy you believed them to be. You did not listen. Now thousands are dead. And for what? Because you were afraid of a species that only wanted friendship. You voted against the resolution, Kethril accused. You were working with them all along. Yes, Tiranesh admitted. We were, because we took the time to understand humans instead of fearing them. We traded with them. We learned from them. We saw what they truly are, not what you assumed they must be. Before Kethril could respond, the main display screen flickered to life. A human face appeared, one that many in the chamber recognized. Ambassador Daniel Carter, the man they had expelled from the Council 3 weeks ago. Members of the Galactic Council, Daniel said calmly. I hope I am not interrupting anything important. You have no right to address this council, Kethril snarled. You are a member of a condemned species. Daniel smiled. It was not a friendly expression. And yet here I am, broadcasting from the bridge of the Defiant Hope, currently positioned in orbit above Vareth Prime. I believe we have some things to discuss. The chamber erupted in panic. Representatives rushed to check their communications devices, confirming what Daniel had said. A human fleet was indeed in orbit above the Council's home world. They had arrived without warning, passing through every defense system as if they did not exist. How is this possible? Someone demanded. We have defense stations, detection grids, warning systems, all of which are designed to detect ships emerging from subspace, Daniel explained. Our ships do not use subspace. We fold space itself. You never saw us coming because you did not know what to look for. Kethrai's face was twisted with fury. If you have come to destroy us, then do it. We will not beg. Daniel shook his head. Aye, Arbiter, if we wanted to destroy you, Vareth Prime would already be burning. We are not here for revenge. We are here to make a point. The display changed, showing images from across the galaxy. Human ships delivering food to a colony that had been devastated by a plague. Human doctors treating wounded survivors of a recent earthquake on a distant world. Human engineers helping to rebuild infrastructure that had been damaged by a natural disaster. 3 weeks ago, a catastrophic storm hit the colony world of Vareth 7, Daniel continued. Millions of people were left homeless. They called for help. The council debated for days about whether to send aid. Eventually, you decided it was not cost-effective. The images showed human shuttles landing on Vareth 7, unloading supplies and medical equipment. Valari refugees, the same species that had voted to destroy humanity, were being fed and sheltered by human volunteers. We heard their call for help, Daniel said. We answered it. Not because we wanted to make the council look bad. Not because we wanted to earn political points. We answered because that is what humans do. When people suffer, we help. Even when those people tried to destroy us. The chamber was silent. Even Kethril seemed stunned by what he was seeing. "You voted against Earth because you believed we were monsters," Daniel said. "You believed that our strength made us dangerous, that our growth made us a threat. You were wrong. Our strength is not in our ships or our weapons. Our strength is in our compassion, our willingness to help even those who hate us, our refusal to become the monsters you assumed we were." He leaned forward, his expression hardening. "But do not mistake our mercy for weakness. We have the power to destroy every fleet you could send against us. We have the technology to burn your worlds and shatter your civilizations. We choose not to use that power. We choose peace. But that choice is not unconditional. What do you want?" Tiranesh asked. "Justice," Daniel replied. "A new vote. One that recognizes humanity as a full member of the galactic community, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. An apology for the unprovoked aggression against our people. And the removal of High Arbiter Kethril from his position for his role in this catastrophe." "You cannot demand such things," Kethril protested, but his voice was weaker now. The other representatives were looking at him with new eyes filled with blame. "We are not demanding anything," Daniel said. "We are offering you a choice. You can continue this war and watch your fleets burn one by one. Or you can accept that you made a mistake and take the first step toward a better future." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You have 1 week to decide. I suggest you use that time wisely." The transmission ended. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the representatives began to talk among themselves. The tone was different now. Less angry, more thoughtful. They were beginning to understand what they were really dealing with. Tiranesh approached Kethril, who stood alone in the center of the chamber. His shoulders were slumped, his 4 eyes staring at nothing. "It is over, Arbiter," she said gently. "The war you started, the hatred you spread, it ends now. The only question is whether you will be remembered as the one who tried to destroy humanity or the one who helped build a new peace." Kethril said nothing, but for the first time since the vote, there was doubt in his eyes. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading the way. 1 month had passed since the failed blockade. 1 month since the galaxy learned that humanity was not the weak, primitive species they had assumed. 1 month since everything changed. The Galactic Assembly Chamber was full again, but the atmosphere was different now. The fear and anger had been replaced by something else. Uncertainty, hope, and for some, shame. Ambassador Daniel Carter stood at the human delegation's platform once again. This time, he was not alone. Beside him stood representatives from the Anthra, the Velm, the Sin, and the Toroth. The 4 species that had voted against the resolution. The 4 species that had believed in humanity when no one else did. "The Council will come to order," the speaker announced. "We are here to vote on Resolution 12 Alpha, the formal recognition of humanity as a full member of the Galactic Council, with all associated rights and privileges." Daniel looked around the chamber. Many of the faces he saw were the same ones that had voted to destroy Earth, but their expressions had changed. They no longer looked at humanity with fear or contempt. They looked at them with respect. Some even looked embarrassed. The Valori delegation was smaller than before. High Arbiter Kethril was no longer among them. After the failed blockade, his own government had removed him from power. He had been blamed for the disaster, for the lives lost, for the shame brought upon the Valori people. Now he sat in a prison cell, waiting for his trial. In his place stood a young Valori named Representative Sireneth. She was different from Kethril. She had spoken out against the resolution from the beginning. She had warned her people that they were making a mistake. No one had listened then. They were listening now. "Before we begin the vote," the speaker said, "does any representative wish to address the council?" Cyreneth rose from her seat. The chamber fell silent. Everyone wanted to hear what the Valori would say. "Members of the council," she began, her voice steady despite her obvious nervousness. "1 month ago, my people made a terrible mistake. We voted to condemn humanity based on fear and prejudice. We sent our fleets to destroy a species that had done nothing to harm us. And we paid the price for that arrogance." She paused, gathering her courage. "I cannot undo what was done. I cannot bring back the lives that were lost. But I can stand here today and say what should have been said from the beginning. We were wrong. The Valori Dominion was wrong. And we are sorry." The chamber was absolutely silent. No one had expected the Valori to apologize. They were one of the oldest and proudest species in the galaxy. They never admitted mistakes. "Humanity showed us something we had forgotten," Cyreneth continued. "They showed us that true strength is not measured in ships or weapons. It is measured in the choices we make when we have power over others. They had every right to destroy us, every reason to seek revenge. Instead, they chose mercy. They saved our people on Vareth 7. They treated our prisoners with dignity. They offered peace when they could have demanded surrender." She turned to look directly at Daniel. "Ambassador Carter, on behalf of the Valori Dominion, I ask for your forgiveness. And I ask that you allow us the honor of supporting Resolution 12 Alpha." Daniel nodded slowly. "Representative Cyreneth, the people of Earth accept your apology. And we look forward to building a new relationship with the Valori people. One based on understanding and respect, not fear." The vote began. One by one, each species cast their decision. This time, the numbers were very different. The Valori voted yes. The Kresh voted yes. The Moldari voted yes. Species that had once condemned humanity now voted to welcome them. The fear that had driven the original resolution had been replaced by something stronger: admiration, gratitude, and the simple recognition that humanity had proven themselves worthy of a place among the stars. When the voting ended, the speaker announced the results. 43 species have voted in favor of Resolution 12 Alpha. 4 species have abstained. 0 species have voted against. The resolution passes. The chamber erupted in applause. Daniel felt a wave of emotion wash over him. 20 years ago, he had come to the council hoping to build bridges between humanity and the galaxy. 20 years of work, nearly destroyed by one vote. Now, finally, that work was complete. "Ambassador Carter," the speaker said, "please step forward to address the council as an official member." Daniel walked to the central platform, the same place where he had pleaded for Earth's survival just weeks ago. He looked out at the assembled representatives and took a deep breath. "Thank you," he said simply. "Thank you for giving humanity a second chance. I know that many of you still have doubts. Many of you still wonder if you made the right decision. I cannot promise that humanity will never make mistakes. We are not perfect. No species is." He paused, letting his words settle. "But I can promise you this. Humanity will never forget the lessons of this conflict. We will never forget that strength without compassion is meaningless. We will never forget that the greatest victory is not the destruction of an enemy, but the creation of a friend." The main display flickered to life behind him, showing a holographic image of President Kevin Brooks broadcasting from Earth. "Members of the Galactic Council," the president said, "on behalf of the people of Earth, I want to thank you for this historic decision. We understand that many of you took a great risk by supporting this resolution. We understand that trust must be earned, not demanded." He smiled warmly. "Today marks the beginning of a new era. An era where humanity takes its rightful place among the stars. Not as conquerors or threats, but as partners. As allies. as friends. The president's image faded, and Daniel continued. Some of you once asked what kind of species humanity is. You wondered if we were predators or explorers, conquerors or builders. I think this past month has given you your answer. You looked at Cyreneth, at Tyrannesh, at all the faces that had once looked at him with suspicion and fear. We are survivors. We are dreamers. We are stubborn, unpredictable, and sometimes difficult to understand. But we are also loyal, compassionate, and fierce in the defense of those we love. His voice hardened slightly. The vote against Earth was a mistake, but it was also an opportunity to show the galaxy who we really are. That opportunity will never come again. Any species that threatens humanity in the future will face the full consequences of that choice. He let the warning hang in the air for a moment, then softened his tone. But I do not believe such warnings will be necessary. I believe that today marks the beginning of a lasting peace. A peace built not on fear, but on mutual respect. A peace that our children and grandchildren will inherit and strengthen. Daniel stepped back from the platform. Thank you for listening. And thank you for choosing to see humanity as we truly are. The session ended, and the representatives began to file out of the chamber. Many stopped to shake Daniel's hand or offer their congratulations. Even some of the species that had voted for the original resolution approached him with words of respect and apology. Hours later, Daniel stood alone on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. He thought about everything that had happened. The vote, the war, the mercy, the resolution. Tyrannesh appeared beside him, her large eyes reflecting the starlight. You did it, she said. You changed everything. Daniel shook his head. Humanity did it. I just spoke the words. And what now? Tyrannesh asked. What does the future hold for your people? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, a real smile this time, full of hope and determination. Everything, he said. The future holds everything. And we are just getting started. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter. Somewhere out there, humanity was building, exploring, dreaming. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger. They had been given a chance to prove their worth, and they had exceeded every expectation. The vote against Earth had been the Council's last mistake. They would not make another, and humanity's true journey among the stars had finally begun.